I really think we need to get rid of seawalls and go to natural protection. Seawalls do not really protect buildings, and they really destroy beaches. They destroy natural areas. We know that natural mangroves do a better job. We know that sea oaks do a better job. How can we stop talking about seawalls and stop talking about natural protections?
The question was seawalls on the dunes. How can we get rid of seawalls and replace them with dunes? Drew, as you know, we have a policy in Palm Beach County to first go with restoring dunes as much as we can. The bottom line really is our pace of restoration of dunes is not keeping up with accelerated erosion right now. Okay, now. Okay, our pace of rebuilding dunes in Palm Beach County is not keeping up with the accelerating rates of erosion. That's really the bottom line answer. We would have to increase funding tremendously in order to keep pace so that the residents don't opt to go with seawalls. After Sandy, what we saw is a lot of folks very scared. Although a lot of these, especially the newer oceanside condominiums or pilings go down to bedrock, the buildings are stationary, they're safe. We saw areas where the sand eroded from underneath the building. You could see daylight under the building. You could see the pilings that go down to the bedrock. There was just no sand there. Those same folks saw their sand wash away, got pretty nervous, and now we're seeing a lot more more applications for seawalls on the coast, not less. So Drew, it's going to be a question that's going to have to be answered at the state level. Will the state continue to issue permits for those seawalls? From our point of view, we're going to put as much in the way of dunes in place as we can put in place, but largely the public dollars that we're going to spend are going to be in the vicinity of public access points. And if it's not in the vicinity of a public access point, we're not going to be rebuilding dunes in those areas. You're going to see more seawalls. And you're right, Drew, once the seawalls are in place, the erosion accelerates even a bit more. During the storm event, it's normal for the sand to leave the beach. You get a high energy zone, high energy waves hitting the shoreline. Those large particles of sand are lifted by that energy. They're carried offshore, 20, 30, 40, 50 yards offshore. They're deposited in a bar. That's the normal response of a Southeast Florida beach. Summertime comes, more gentle southeast winds, that sandbar that's offshore gets pushed back up on the beach. The beach typically gets more narrow in the wintertime, gets wider in the summertime. When you have a seawall, after that beach is taken away, if there's no dune behind it, the waves keep hitting that seawall, reflecting back. The beach doesn't ever get a chance to build back up onto the seawall. That's the problems with the walls.
All right, I think we got a good feel on that. I have 3 questions coming in asking if RCAP has entertained a public service announcement or an ad campaign to educate the public. Can anyone speak to that? Has it ever been discussed? Will you discuss it?
The RCAP and as part of the Compact Staff Steering Committee, I don't think that we've explicitly had a conversation about public service announcements of that nature. It's certainly something that could be considered. At this point in time, we do not have a communications budget. So if we were able to maybe get some of the support that's provided for PSAs, that might be an option. I don't think that there's any opposition. We just simply haven't gotten that far, but it's a real good idea.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking that even if we can't get public funds, perhaps private groups, grants, something that's sponsored, like a group that sponsored this event. It has been so effective in so many other areas, in anti-smoking campaigns, and anti-drinking campaigns, drinking while you're driving. And I really think, as a public official, you've got a lot of support among public officials, but we really need to convince the public in general that this is a place where our funds need to go because we don't have a choice.
And so you're onto something. I ask you to run with it contact folks to make sure that what you're trying to get funding for is a message they want to get out, and have at it. I'm very proud of that. Do it.
Thank you.
We'll take that question.
In some areas of South Florida, mitigation is not possible with the population in place where it is, particularly in South Dade, south of the Miami River. I don't think mitigation is possible to support that population. So my question is does the relocation option ever come up? And if it does or doesn't, is there any consideration to economic mitigation? In other words, the people who were put into housing down there after Hurricane Andrew destroyed the place, and the contractors foolishly built all that housing down in an unsustainable area. Their property values are going to go to zero. So is it just too bad for them, or is there any consideration of economic mitigation and relocation?
Mitigation is still, I share the concern about Bangkok, absolutely, and other areas around the world. And that's why I think mitigation is so important. The best thing we can do for very vulnerable areas is to try and lessen as much as possible the impact that climate change will have. I think you're correct about relocation options and all sorts of adaptation options that definitely do bring with them social justice concerns as well. As far as any sort of planning on that, I'll let someone else talk on that.
So I live in Miami-Dade, south of Miami River, and I think you have to be, there are some very high ground that Flagler built the railroad on. All you have to do is put your finger on US 1 and go south, and you'll find some of the highest ground in Dade County. On either side of that, our area is going to be vulnerable. So it's about being selective. But let me give you a specific example, just information just came out last week. The National Park, Everglades National Park, is doing their general master plan update. And they just brought out their draft. You can go and see it online. And they have facilities at Everglades City in Flamingo that are there for tours. It's a very important economic activity, and it's part of the access to the national parks. And they went from a plan for rebuilding at Flamingo, which was going to cost about $40 million, to one that is highly sensitive to the fact that they expect sea level rise in that area, and that they're down to around a $7 million investment. It'll still allow people with boats and people who want to be tourists to go there for the next couple decades, but they're all movable structures. They can be picked up on trailers and moved from Flamingo. So I think there's an opportunity there to take that model and look at it. It's not going to be the solution for all of South Dade, but it is it's a start of how we might deal with these issues in the future.
I guess I would offer that I don't think that it's going to be such a stark change. I think that we will see things that happen gradually. I don't think that property values are going to plummet to zero overnight. I think that there will be a gradual recognition, just like we've seen in other communities where you have frequent hazards that come through. There may be property buyout opportunities in the future. I think that that's some years out. In the meantime, there are investments that can be protected through certain types of adaptation strategies. And to the extent that those will be effective for those communities, those will be pursued. I think that there will, though, be this increasing recognition of losses and so forth that's going to make it difficult to justify investments and continued residency and use of certain lands. And when those realizations are come to bear, that's going to drive some of those decisions. I think that there will also be adjustments in the insurance market that will happen over time too, that are going to make some of those realizations a little bit more obvious. So I think that we will see a series of transitions that occurs over decades, but there is still a lot of use to be made of existing investments. We need to be very thoughtful though about particularly the new investments, where they take place and how they are built, and be thoughtful about whether those are the right ones to make.
Something like this, is population actually still growing? Human population? Or are we working under an old assumption? I'll just tell you, it's still growing. And we get nervous when we hear about a 0% growth, because how are we going to ever pay our bills? So part of me wishes that our elected officials, and are there any of you here, are any of you elected officials? Thank you so much. We invite you to our meeting. I think we all need to take a deep breath and fix our economic model so that we're not constantly requiring the wrong things to sustain the economic model we have, like a growing population. So 1% growth is still growth. So I'm sorry, I think people have to think about that in the long run, and they don't like to hear it. The one that I think is intriguing for this group, somebody's mentioning a sinkhole that took a man and his bed down 50 feet in Palm Beach County, but I think it was in Tampa. Yeah. And then similarly, somebody said, we talked about turtles and corals, but do they have any positive effect on solving the problem? So these are water related, and somebody on the panel, jump in.
I'll just say that the corals, do the corals have a positive effect on saving or addressing the problem? They sure do. Corals are the first attack that we have against wave energy. The preservation of our coral reefs is the best thing that we can do to protect our beaches and to avoid some of the hard infrastructure improvements or solutions that may not be as attractive. So anything that we can do to improve the resilience of our reef system so that the reefs can better adapt to the changing environment as a result of climate change will help to ensure their continued presence and protection of our shoreline, as well as all of the ecosystem benefits that they provide with respect to, supporting a diverse and important fishery system.
If I can add to that a little bit, one of the things that we do see on corals is after something like a bleaching event, where a lot of corals are lost, those corals that manage to survive that seem to have greater resiliency to future events. Corals have been around a long time. Maybe they actually have some ability to adapt. Same is true for sea turtles. They've been around a few million years. They're old reptiles. They've seen some of this before. So yeah, there's some adaptation going on.
Yeah, but can someone here address sinkhole heaven? Are sinkhole incidences increasing as a result of this? Would someone like to speak to that question?
I think that
well, one of the causes of sinkholes is the withdrawal of groundwater. And if you have a population increase and start pumping a lot more groundwater for agriculture or because less rainfall, you might see, particularly in the northern part of the state, if you start withdrawing. So that's an area that needs to be focused on in terms of groundwater withdrawals, and this is one of those side effects of groundwater withdrawals. Particularly if the rainfall is less and less, there would be less recharge into the groundwater. And so that's kind of the only thing I can think of. I haven't thought about sinkholes in the past.
All right, so I'm going to ask the panel to stay right there, but here are some incredibly great questions we're not going to get to, but we need to get to them after lunch. Someone beautifully asks, how will an increase in walking and biking be sustainable with increasing temperatures? And then actually came up with a solution. Maybe the solution is to mandate shade in development and land use planning.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly right. Okay, asked and answered.